Once I disclosed that I was Republican and the paper picked it up is when I started receiving hate mail from Democrats and people that told me that I was a sellout and that it was the tradition of black people to be Democrat. Up until that time, I didn't really think much about it.
The Republican Party has either not told its story well, or its story has been hidden and contained by the liberal media. There would be no Voting Rights Act if it hadn't been for Republican Senate and House members. There would not be the legislation we have today. It was Republicans who stood up for that stuff. The Democrats were the racists back in those days. It was a Democratic South, and those Democratic governors were the racists. But again, history has been kind of rewritten.
The Republican Party in Texas was started on the 4th of July, 1867 in Houston, Texas by 150 blacks and 20 whites. It was that way across the South. The Republican parties were started in the South by African Americans. In the state of Texas, 2 of our first 3 statewide Republican chairmen were African American. The first 42 black legislators elected in Texas were all Republican. The first 112 black legislators elected in Mississippi were all Republican. The first 190 black legislators elected in South Carolina were all Republican. The first 41 in Georgia, the first 127 in Louisiana. So now you've got all these African Americans really stepping up and starting to gain political standing, political power. Now, you have Democrats on the other side who have been very racist. It's in their platforms. They support the Dred Scott decision. They think the fugitive slave law is great. They started a nation to keep slavery alive. Very racist. And so now they're facing a situation where these blacks are now their rulers, are now in office, are now U.S. senators, are now U.S. How do you stop that? 1866, Democrats themselves started the Ku Klux Klan. Its purpose was not to kill blacks. Its purpose was to take control and return Democrats to power. Their stated purpose in the KKK was to stop Republicans and restore Democratic control. Now, if you're looking for a Republican that you want to take care of, you can wipe out any black you want because they're 100% Republicans at that point in time. You can't wipe out any white. I mean, some whites might be Democrats. You got to be a little more judicious when you're wiping out whites. So what happens is the Ku Klux Klan starts attacking, not blacks, Republican conventions. For example, in New Orleans, in the Republican convention in Louisiana, the Klan joined with the New Orleans police, joined with the New Orleans mayor, Democrats. They attacked physically at the convention in New Orleans, Republican convention. They killed 40 blacks, killed 20 whites, they wounded 150 others. In 1868, they put out a push card in South Carolina, and it listed what they called the radical members of the South Carolina legislature. That push card's about the size of a baseball card. It was put up by the Klan. Klan put it out. It had the pictures of 63 legislators that needed to be wiped out in South Carolina. 50 of those legislators were black, 13 were white. Now, they were all 63 Republican. On the back of the card, it gave you the name of each legislator so you'd know who you're trying to kill. Congress starts these hearings in this group called the Klan. And they have hearings, and so they bring in Democrat leaders that under oath from these Democrat states said, yes, the Klan belongs to our party. It's actually in Congress. 1872, the hearings, it's a 13-volume set of hearings in Congress. Unequivocally, Democrats say the Klan is ours and belongs to us. It's there to restore Democrat control in the southern states. Those guys who lived through it made it very clear. For example, one of the early black congressmen was John Roy Lynch. Another early black congressman was Richard Kane. And they're having to fight the Klan physically for their own safety. They go armed to Congress because of the Klan attacks. These guys said, if we as blacks would simply stop voting the Republican ticket, if we would agree to vote the straight Democrat ticket, all the violence against us would be stopped.
In 1964, incidentally a year that 3 of our civil rights workers were killed in Mississippi registering blacks to vote, was also the year that civil rights legislation, historic civil rights legislation, was being promoted, and President Johnson wanted to sign it, but nevertheless it was held up, bottled up in the United States Senate by Southern Democrats. And one Democrat in particular, who was the last individual to try to obstruct this legislation, was a guy named Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia, who for 14 hours and 13 minutes held a filibuster against this civil rights legislation.
Senator Robert Byrd used the nigger word 3 times on a national televised TV show. No outcry at all. Nobody said a thing, at least from the Democrat. No, the Black Caucus didn't say anything, the NAACP, no outcry.
There's no price to pay when you're on the left and you make intemperate racial remarks. There's no price to pay. We say, well, it's just, we're making much to do about nothing.
They want
and then we'll be finished.
Hi, I'm Joyce Jones of Black Enterprise. John Lewis put his life at considerable risk and danger so that you could stand here and talk about freedoms. And I want to know why it is so impossible for you to think that he impossible to believe that somebody actually did spit on him or call him the N-word. Why would he lie about that when he's experienced so much worse?
Okay, I'm going to provide an answer, then someone can follow up. I see Mr. Kane walking up here like first of all, there has been no evidence to substantiate the claim. And if we were just to look at that, there's been no evidence.
Why is his word not good enough?
Well, in the stage of public opinion, evidence is paramount. Okay, other than that, then it's one person's accusation against another. And if it was so public, then it should not be a difficult time in finding the public evidence, and there is none.
But
So,
we were there that day because
okay.
we were covering.
Did you
the
hear
event.
it? Did you hear it?
I was not walking with him,
Okay.
but there were crowds, so it's very easy
All right, I'm giving you
to
answer
assume
A.
that such things could
This is going to
occur,
give you B.
and not everybody would see it. It's not like there were cameras filming the whole thing all day.
Okay, I'm going to have Zoe and then Andrew follow up.
Now, I understand. Why shouldn't his word be good enough? Why wasn't George Bush's word good enough?
But let's not compare.
No.
I'm talking about Mr. Lewis, not Mr. Lewis.
I'm the narrator. Okay.
Now,
You always want to
if
compare.
the spittle is on her shirt, at least Monica Lewinsky kept her skirt. You know, I mean, where's the spittle? I mean, we could just go ahead and read it. We'll take it down to the dry cleaner. We'll extract the spit, and there you go. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, even my friend Andrew Breitbart offered a $100,000 reward, and no evidence has been brought up.
Your friend who doctored the NAACP.
Doctored it. If he doctored it, he did them a favor, because if you look at the whole tape, you'll find out just how racist Shirley Sherrod is.
I have to say something.
We have a response.
Let me respond to this point very quickly. John Lewis is a hero, okay? May disagree with him on a variety of ideological questions, but he's a hero. He wears his crown on his head from the lumps he took in the civil rights revolution. Having said that, why? Unfortunately, politics is very persuasive. Why did John Lewis stand up with Bob Byrd? Not only a former Klansman, but a former general within the Ku Klux Klan. Why did Robert Byrd support the filibuster, which was so often used to stifle the civil rights revolution that he was a part of, when it was used against Janice Rogers Brown when she was going up for the appellate judgeship? Because often political pressure and political politics can persuade you to do things that you might not often do. But the bottom line in this case, Congressman Cleaver, alleged that somebody spit on him. The Capitol Police stopped this person, grabbed this person, asked Mr. Cleaver if they want him arrested. Cleaver said no. Now, does he not have a responsibility to stop all this racism? He's a congressman. He's a congressman. And he refused to press charges. Why? Because it is a fraudulent issue. Stop playing with racism. A man in Connecticut just killed 9 people playing the victim card and alleging racism. It's a powder cake, folks, and you should not play games with it in our country. We've come a long way, and we don't want to look back.
I'm wondering about the substance of policy with regard to your groups, everyone.
Okay, well, let me just say that the purpose for this gathering is to express that there are no racial motivations or or content in the Tea Party movement. That's the purpose for this gathering. Now, as it pertains to your questions, I'm sure there are a lot of people here who are politically involved, but this was not a gathering to endorse a politician or to get into that arena of it. This is just to emphatically state that the Tea Party movement does not endorse racism. It has not and will not.
On our backs and make us carry the mantle of that because we want to speak out because somebody who's in office happens to have some color in his blood too. If he's making policy that's not good for America, we intend to continually speak out against it. And as I said in my opening statements, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Something very, very quick. I just want to, something I like to say when I go to Tea Party rallies and things. I would like for everybody here who considers themselves a minority to please raise their hand. Please raise your hand if you consider yourself a minority. Okay, so these two ladies have decided not to raise their hand. Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
I don't feel like playing your game.
Okay, I understand, that's fine. Now, let me take an issue with you. Women, minority, quote-unquote minorities, their fight is for equal pay for equal work, correct? Equal pay for equal work. Did they fight for equal pay for equal work because they're minorities? Or because they don't consider themselves to be minorities, because they're equal? Then, if they do it because they're equal, then why do they consider themselves minorities? Do you understand the point? A gentleman came up to me one time and he said, I came here in 1964 from Jamaica. I went to the University of Maryland to fill out my application. And he said he had a friend with him, and he was filling out the application. He got to the box that said race. And he looked at his friend and he said, what is this thing called race? You see, if we're going to have policy, it needs to start with the understanding that race should never be an issue. And when we start from that point, then the United States of America will start to become a different country and reach its full potential.
Calling Barack Obama a socialist is racist? That's absurd. Half of Europe is socialist and proud of it. They have parties named Socialist, Democratic Socialist Party. Okay, and Canada for that matter. And to say that Barack Obama is within that framework of ideological thought is not racist. That's absurd. The signs that had him painted up as a joker. I saw a sign, thanks to my friend Roy Murdoch, also a part of Project 21. Roy Murdoch came up with a poster that he found of George Bush dressed up like Ronald McDonald, and he was called McMurderer. Was that racist? Was that anti-white? That's silly. I mean, to call Barack Obama Hitler. There was a MoveOn.org. We've all heard of that, right? George Soros, one of the patrons of our president, had a commercial that superimposed Adolf Hitler on George W. Bush. You know what kind of vicious signs? There was a movie celebrating the assassination of George Bush. There was a cartoon called Little Bush. You all remember that? Are these things racist? Keep in mind that when you say that the first president that happens to be African American is beyond reproach, and that if you critique him, if you criticize him, you're a racist, what you're really saying is that he can't handle the job. Right. Jackie Robinson did not complain about fastballs being thrown at him. He didn't say, oh, no, I'm black, so you have to throw underhand at me. That's right. That's right. You know, I'm black, so, you know, if I didn't steal second base, you have to call me safe anyway. That's right. It's absurd. And I think the president should know it's actually an insult to him. That's right. He should stop. Can I get in there?